Now that you are masters of the SEO service, let's talk about taking that service and turning it into a business. Now, just knowing how to do SEO does not mean that you are qualified to have a business or that you do have a business. Having a business or an agency comes when you're able to take that service and productize it through processes. You have a business when you can get other people to do the work for you while you focus on growing and managing the business. The only way that you can do that is by having set, distinct processes that anyone can pick up and follow. So this is not only the first step in pulling yourself out of operations. Like, you shouldn't be doing keyword research after a certain point. You shouldn't be doing the actual SEO work. You should, again, be focused on managing clients, managing growth, pipeline, and then also making sure that your staff has everything that they need to get stuff done. That's when you have an agency. Otherwise, you're a consultant who knows how to do the service, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you do want to grow and scale past a certain point, processes are ultimately what's going to help you get there. And having processes doesn't mean that you're restricted to do SEO or whatever it is that you're doing in a certain type of way. It's actually the opposite. Having a process allows you to identify inefficiencies in your service area and fix those things. Because if you're just trying to grasp at straws for everything that's going on and you don't know where inefficiencies and gaps are coming from, you can't ultimately improve the quality of your service. So processes are key for that as well. But to me, almost most importantly, is if you're just getting started and you don't have a lot of money to spend on staff, having processes allows you to get people in at a much lower cost because they're essentially following a checklist in a sense. So you don't need to go out and hire someone too experienced who needs to think. You just need to get someone in who's open-minded, who can work hard, and who can follow what you build for them and then help you to build and iterate that over time. So you can train them in-house, which is going to save you a lot of money up front and in the long run as well. Or you can offshore, which we'll talk about in the next video. So how do we processize SEO? How do we take something that's a complete cluster F and turn it into a well-oiled machine? So I've outlined 5 different things here that I want to cover in this video that we're going to talk about how to take your service of SEO and turn it into a highly processized service. So the first thing that we want to do is just get on a whiteboard or a piece of paper and just lay out the full kitchen sink of what your service entails. The next thing that we want to do is we want to take that service and blow out into sub-processes. So the service might look like something like keyword research, on page, content, blah, blah, blah. We want to break keyword research down into very strict and distinct sub-processes that we can eventually turn into standard operating procedures and have people go in and run that for us. After that, we want to determine the stakeholders for who's going to do what in each step of the process. We have a system called doers and reviewers at the agency that we'll talk about in detail. You also want to estimate the time to completion for each step in the process, the level of effort that we talked a little bit before in the previous video. And then finally, you want to deploy, analyze, and iterate. And I'll show you some tools that I use to help me do that. So let's talk about step 1, which is laying out the full kitchen sink. I like to do this on a whiteboard or a piece of paper, a napkin, whatever you got. But what we want to do is start writing down everything that your service entails. So what I've got here is based on our first video, the service that I proposed to you guys to use, that 80-20 principle of SEO. I've got it built out here. So some of the things that I've got here: technical analysis. That's going to be our website quality that we discussed in the previous video. Technical fixes too. So it's important to understand that with SEO, we don't want to just make recommendations. We also want to build some sort of plan or course of action so they can actually get those things done. So whether or not you do those technical fixes, that's still something that we want to account for so that we can build a process around how to get that done, even if we're outsourcing that or having the client do it. But we want that in there because it's important. Next up is keyword research. On page, again, on page fixes, making sure that after we do the on page that we actually go through and change the page titles and things like that. Content strategy, content creation, link strategy, and link acquisition. So those are the same buckets that I proposed to you guys in the previous video with a little bit of extra layer on there for just making sure that the recommendations get done. Down here in gray, though, this is what I've got that I refer to as the service layer. So these are the things that they might not be a part of the service if you're doing it for your own website or you want to do SEO for yourself. But if you do want to take this and turn this into a business, that service layer is very, very important. So this is literally kind of step by step. You get the signed agreement, you got to get the paid invoice, you send a kickoff email, you have a kickoff call. And again, these aren't things that you have to do. This is just based on how we run our service. You got to do project planning. That's incredibly important. Data analysis to understand what that website does, how it's currently performing, client meetings, and then reporting, right? So all these things together here, this is kind of, again, my 80-20 of the kitchen sink. So this is everything that we try to jam in at the very core minimum for us to get results and for us to have clients be comfortable and happy to pay our invoices each month by adding in that service layer. This is our kitchen sink. So you've got to go through and do this for yourself, because from there, then what we want to do is we want to start to build this into those sub processes that I talked about. So after you've got your kitchen sink built out, then we can start to blow out these sub processes. And honestly, there's really no way around this. I have a lot of consults with agencies, and everyone's aware that they need to do processes, and everyone just kind of looks me in the eye and they're just like, I just can't. Can I hire someone to do it? Can I hire you to do it? And you just can't, because if you have to hire somebody to come in and build your processes for you, what are they going to do? They're going to spend the first half of their time that you're paying them to dissect that information from you. So you might as well just get it done yourself while it's at. It's going to save you a lot of money, as opposed to trying to transfer your knowledge of how you do things to somebody else and have them processize it. I know it sucks. I know it's a lot of work, but this is incredibly necessary. You just have to gut it out and get it done if you do want to get your agency to the next level. And basically all we're going to do here is we're going to document how to complete each element of the service step by step. I like to use a combination of video and written guidance. Obviously, I make a lot of videos, so it's very easy for me to do this. We actually built an entire training course for our employees that we actually ended up selling as the Blueprint Training. That's our training platform where we've got all these things documented. So how to do keyword research step by step. Here's the template. Here's how to fill it out. Here's how to analyze the client. Here's how to find the keywords, analyze them, how to blah, blah, blah. We have that all built out into written guidance and video guidance. So anyone can come in, watch those set of videos, and then know how to do keyword research. And then, of course, we're going to manage them, train them, and make sure that they get it up to par. But that's the beginning step of being able to do that. So without documentation of our processes, hiring and managing staff, either local or offshore, is always going to be a huge pain in the ass. Like these sub processes that are documented allow us to bring anyone into our agency and get them trained and get them up to speed incredibly quickly. So let's take a deeper look here. So this is a screenshot of our website quality audit, right? So when we're talking about building out the sub processes, again, we've got our kitchen sink. The website quality was up there for technical SEO. Let's build out the sub processes for that, right? So the first thing that we're going to have to do is get access to our clients' Search Console, Analytics, and Tag Manager. I have these up here in gray because these are administrative style tasks. Then we got to set up a site crawl, review robots.txt, review status codes, review 301 redirects, and then send a client, right? But that's still not enough, right? That's still a breakdown of how we run the website quality audit, right? So that would be like how to run your technical audit, how to run your keyword research file. But there's still other elements. We can break that down even further so people know exactly how to go in. And basically we're exporting the information from our brain for how to do very advanced SEO into documentation that, again, anyone can pick up and follow. So I highlighted this here in yellow because each of these is probably going to break down into another process, right? It's not just setting up a site crawl. We can't just be like, oh, set up a site crawl. If they don't know how to do it, we're going to have to teach them how to do it. That's why I like to use video, because I'll shoot a quick 2-minute video that's like, hey, here's how you run a Sitebulb, Screaming Frog, or Deep Crawl site crawl, right? Very easy to do, just a screen capture video, just like you're looking at now. And then we have that training in perpetuity. So that part is done. Then review robots.txt. That's not an easy thing to do. What are you looking for? What should they be looking for? What are the errors that they can find? So we need to blow these out. So for example, when we're talking about reviewing status codes, this is a really important part of technical SEO that I had mentioned in the previous video that we're going to want to review. So how do we do that? How do we review the status codes? Well, you got to start by opening up the audit, filter column M. That's just a random example, but very specific, right? If we're looking at status codes as part of spreadsheet, how do they find those status codes? They're in column L, review the 404s, review 301s, etc. And you can see here how I've even highlighted review 404. So you can see how this can spider off into very big documentation. That's why I like to use video instead of just written stuff, because written stuff you can just go on for days, but video, basically all you need to do is go through and show someone how to run, set up, audit, analyze the website quality audit. And again, I strongly suggest you guys check out the Blueprint Training because we already have the stuff done for you, but you can see how we formatted it for our agency so you can understand how these video trainings and processes can work. And I promise you, as soon as you go through those, it's going to be like a light bulb. And you're like, okay, now I get it. Now I can see how this is going to help us scale. And I'm hoping that you guys can start to see as we go through this, that if you can get this done, this is how you maintain the quality of your service at scale. Right? Because you're taking what's in your brain for how to do these very advanced SEO tactics and you're putting them into documentation that, and if anyone can watch a video, they can figure out how to do it if they have at least a baseline for what SEO is. You know what I mean? So we blew out the kitchen sink. We then defined our sub processes. Now what we want to do is determine our stakeholders. So what I like to say here is we don't have to do this for specific people. Like you wouldn't want to be like, hey, this is for Andrew or for Pamela. We want to do this for roles, not people, because people change, roles don't, unless you're making shifts to organization. So we want to set the skill sets or the roles needed to execute each line in the sub-process and process. So this helps us understand at a very high level who you need to hire to help deliver your service. And I'm going to show you how I have it laid out for our agency. It's going to be in our project plan, but it's probably going to differ for you guys. So, take it with a grain of salt. Again, we have all of our systems for you guys to download and use for yourself if you want. So if you do want to go through this with some templates, I strongly suggest that because it'll make a lot more sense as you do. But basically all you need to do is ask yourself who should handle each aspect of your service. It's really that simple. So we can define who is going to handle those things for us. And what this will allow you to do is will allow you to hire a lot easier because you're going to know the exact roles that you need. And it's going to help you to identify the gaps that you may or may not have in your agency in terms of talent that you need to go out and hire for. So what you're looking at here is, this is actually exported from our project plan. I'm going to show you our project plan in a second, but basically you got the deliverable, you've got the task, right? So you'll see some of these things in here twice, like website quality audit, because sometimes there's multiple tasks or multiple sub steps that need to happen to finish the deliverable. We like to try and roll them up as much as possible. But for example, the website quality audit, we have someone who runs it and then does the analysis of it. And then someone who needs to go through and implement the changes, like cleaning up the 404s, 301 redirects, etc. Anything that comes out of that audit, we also have to implement. So it's important that we note that, and we want to make sure that we have a role assigned to that. So all we're doing here is assigning a stakeholder role for each one of these things. So for example, we have administrative, we have SEO, analytics, and content in here. So for client onboarding, sending the email and scheduling the kickoff calls, that's going to be an administrative role. Like we wouldn't want to use an SEO person to do that because that is a completely separate skill set. And if you have enough of this work, which we're looking at here, I'm going to talk about in a second, then you can hire someone specifically for that role, especially as we're talking about growing this over multiple client campaigns. So what you can do by building this all out is you can, again, see everything in green here is SEO. Everything in green here is SEO, orange is analytics, red is content. You can just see by looking at this, by the colors of how much work each different role has. You can see content and SEO are heavy, basically 3-to-1 to analytics and admin. So basically what we can start to do here is we can use this just at a very crude visual guide to understand resourcing. How much level of effort is going to be needed from each one of these roles on each one of our client campaigns. And that will help you understand, should we hire in-house? Should we get a contractor? Should we get a freelancer? Should we outsource this? And the level of skill set that you need from that person. So just going through and assigning these stakeholders is a very simple thing to do. And this will make a little bit more sense when we look at our project plan. So what we've got here is a half-finished version of a project plan. This is the exact template that we use. It's got the due date. We've got the doers and reviewers. The doer is usually our junior person in-house or of our offshore team. I like to say that the doers are the ones who are responsible for going through and actually literally doing the work. And then the reviewers are the ones who are responsible, who are a little bit more senior, who can go through and review it. So for example, for keyword research, we have a small offshore team that's going through and delivering that service for us. But of course, we don't want to just send that to a client without that being reviewed. So we have a reviewer who is a senior SEO strategist who goes through and reviews that to make sure that it's up to par. So we built a system of doers and reviewers that goes hand in hand that we'll talk about more in the next video when we talk about staffing. But after that, we've just got the client campaign, we've got the deliverable, the task, and the status. We've also then got sections here. I hid them though for the Sheets template, the presentation template, and the training. So we'll actually link to a module in our training for people to go through and understand this. So you can see we've also built this out here for 12 months. We've got a 12-month project plan that's pretty much standardized, again, because we're focused on just B2B. We're focused on a very specific part of B2B. So we kind of already know what this is going to entail. And we're able to build this directly off of what we're pitching for people on day one. We show up with this all done. And of course, things will change. But you can see how we've got this into a very fine-tuned process. We know everything that's going to come up for these clients over 12 months. That's pretty crazy if you think about it. And of course, like I said, things will change. But going in there with a plan and a process and a framework gives not only the client peace of mind, but you as well, because you know that all you really got to do is, again, sit back and make sure that things are getting done on time. So you can take yourself out of doing keyword research because you know, hey, for this client, we have keyword research, website quality, out of content. I need X, Y, and Z people. I can hire them. I can train them because I've got these processes done. And I can just basically manage my entire agency from this sheet, which is exactly what we do. It's pretty incredibly powerful once you've got these processes done because it allows you to just run like a machine. So now we've got the big picture done. We've got the sub processes done. We've got the roles assigned. Now we also want to understand the time to completion. And I call this closing the loop on your agency. And that's really leveraging hours throughout your agency. And I get so much pushback on this from so many people. They think that tracking hours is micromanaging. They think that you're leaving money on the table by not doing value-based. But I'm going to push this all together for you here so you can understand why hours are so important in tracking and understanding how much time things take to growing and scaling your agency. So the first time you go through this estimated time to completion, it's just going to be a guess, right? You don't know exactly how long it's going to take to do keyword research, exactly how many hours, but you do have to guess and put an estimate up. And then basically what you want to do is use data and tracking hours to then feed that back through. And it's so important that you do this. And I liken this to like if you're building, I talked about this before, I think, if you're building a mouse, right? You don't just go in and build a mouse and say, oh, I think this is going to cost us $2 to build this and we'll sell it for $5. No, you have to know exactly how much it costs you to build this mouse if you want to be able to be profitable in your company. And it's the same thing with your agency. If you don't track your hours, if you don't understand how long it's taking you to complete your service, how do you know what your profit is? How do you manage a company if you don't know what it costs you to deliver your service? It's so important. Again, it's not about micromanaging your employees and making them track and record their time. It's about letting them understand that, hey, you're tracking your time because I need to know how long it's taking you to do this so I can manage your schedule better and I'm not dumping a ton of stuff on top of you that you can't handle. And if you don't know how long it's taking them, how do you balance out your resources? How do you do load management? You can't. So hours are really the glue that help you from selling hours. Hey, we're selling you 10 hours, blah, blah, which we'll talk about in a second. And then saying, hey, it's going to take us 10 hours to complete this. And then actually understanding how long it took to complete and then building and closing that loop. So that's what I have here. It's the 3-part plan of hours. And I just came up with this. So it's a visual on what I mean when I say closing the loop. Tracking hours. You have to be tracking how much time it's taking your people to do stuff. Even if you don't want to use a very advanced system, having them just record, hey, it took me 4 hours to complete keyword research today. Again, letting your staff know that we're not doing this to play Big Brother. We're doing this to make your life easier. After that is planning. Once you know how long it takes something, then you can then plan and forecast better. And then finally, the piece of that is pitching. So if you're tracking hours, you can then plan your projects a lot better. You can make your people not work 80 hours a week and you can get things done on time. And then pitching, you can then take that data and you can better format your pitches to know exactly how long it's going to take you to do technical SEO, to do keyword research. So this is a loop that you have to be constantly in tune with. This is what you should be managing. You should be managing the hours. You should manage the inefficiencies in your process, because this is how you take yourself to the next level. I promise you, you have to understand what your service is costing you to run it efficiently. So when it comes to time tracking systems, we use a system called Clockify. It just basically set up projects and people can record their screens so you know how long it takes. Again, you don't have to use software. If you feel like you're being too much Big Brother with your people, then don't. But you have to understand this either way. If you just want to use a Google Sheets system, it doesn't matter. But you have to be tracking for every time that they're doing something to know how long it takes so you can better manage and run your agency. So the next step is planning. If you're tracking hours, then you can then better plan for hours as well, meaning that when you're setting up your project plans, you know exactly how long it's going to take people. And again, if you're just working off of what you sold the client, if you're selling a client 10 hours, but it's actually going to take you 20, if you don't have that connection, that's why I call hours the glue. If your sales department is disconjointed with your actual delivery department, then your sales team is going to be pissing off your delivery team a lot. Because if we're saying, hey, you have 10 hours to do this very advanced technical audit, because that's what the salesperson is putting down to win that contract, but it's going to take 40, then you're losing 3 times or 4 times. I don't know how to do math. You're losing a lot of money on what you sold. So just because you sold a $100,000 audit, if it's taking you $200,000 in labor, it's not worth it, man. So again, this glue helps you make these hours, help you make so many well-informed decisions about your business. If you should take on work, if you shouldn't take on work, and making sure that you're consistently bringing in the right work that your staff can actually deliver and deliver profitably. And you can forecast for that as well. So the final part of this is pitching, right? We're able to build proper sales projections and proposals because we know exactly how long it's going to take. So I'm able to build my proposals based on the actuals that's going to take. And this can be a major problem with sales departments who are under pitching hours and then delivery departments who actually have to go in and do 4 times the work. And that's not a good thing. If you're selling something for $10,000, but it's costing you $40,000, you're losing money. So using this system will really help you to understand the right type of work to pitch if you're a good fit for that client. And again, now you can understand too, because I get asked all the time, like, hey, Ryan, can you give us a discount? Is this the best you can do? Like, yes, this is the best I can do. Like, just like if you're going to Target to buy a TV that costs $1,000, that company has a set cost of goods sold. That's what it costs. That's what the price is. So, if you understand what your hours and your numbers are internally, then you can make better decisions, again, in regards to working with clients and accepting work. And it's an important note too, is that I don't bill hourly. Like we're not like an attorney that like work 19 hours a month and then send you a bill for it. I'm going to show you our pricing template in a second so you can get a much better grasp for it. Actually, you know what? Let me just open it up right now. So what you're looking at here is our pricing template that I send to every prospective client at our agency. And what I have here is all of our service lines bucketed out, right? The exact same thing, surprise, surprise, that I showed you in terms of how we 80/20 our service. You can start to see how this stuff is starting to glue together. It's consistent, it's congruent, it's a streamlined process. We're pitching what we do, we're tracking, and then we're folding that back into our pitches. So what I have here is technical SEO, and then a little bit about what's entailed, the number of hours, our rate, and then the monthly cost. Keyword research, on-page, content strategy, analytics, and link building, right? And I talked a little bit about when you outsource link building. So you can see, even though we're using a vendor for link building, I'm still charging for that for hourly management. So we're still making $800 a month off link building at our agency. And then, of course, I also charge for project management and reporting. You can then see down here at the bottom, it's summed up in terms of hours, the average hourly rate, and the monthly cost. So basically what I tell clients is this. I say, look, at month 1, we have 37 hours, month 2, 33, month 3, 47, month 4, 18. So you can see how there's an up and down. There's an ebb and flow in how many hours that we have. So I tell them, look, we track hours, but it's for internal use. We're not going to we're not going to bill you by the hour if we go over, if we go under. This is what we're forecasting based on years of work for how long it's going to take us. At that point, the hours conversation with the client is dead. I tell them that we're using these hours, we're amortizing them into a retainer. This is what you owe us per month. And that's it. Then I don't send them a bill for hours. I send them a bill for this amount, and it just says month of SEO services is going to be $69.50. That's really, really important. Because a lot of pushback I get from you guys is that, hey, like, I don't want to be tracking hours. I don't want to be sending the client because what if we go over? What if we don't come under? Do we have to do more work? No, you're doing what's contracted. And this is an important part of the contracting process too, is that once you get this done and accepted, then you put in a contract that client is not paying you for hours. They're paying you for these deliverables. So it's a little bit of fancy footwork that helps me move off of the hour system in the eyes of the client, but still helps me baseline and understand what this is going to cost me and making sure that I have the right number of hours allocated for my team. Then again, we take this, we push this into the project plan, which looks very similar to this. It's just laid out vertically. So we're able to take this, transpose this into a project plan, and then we know how many hours it's going to take for them to do that. We have an idea, and then they're tracking their hours so we can see how many it does. So then at the end of every quarter, we can go in and we can align the hours that they worked versus the hours that we pitched, and we can actually understand what our profitability is at the service level. Crazy, right? And I know it sounds a little bit complicated, but it's really not. And I'm telling you, it's more of a culture thing than anything. Getting your employees to understand that we're not here to play Big Brother. We're not here to watch you over. We're here to make your life easy. This is about managing your calendar and making sure that you're not getting dumped 5 keyword researches in the same week because, hey, we're just going off the deliverable. It can't work like that. You cannot function like that. It will be mayhem. So hopefully that makes sense when I talked about closing the loop. I just gave you guys that template right there. The final part of this process is deploying, analyzing, and iterating. So I mentioned this before, but your process is your service. It's a living, breathing entity, and it needs to be constantly monitored. It's not something that you just build a process and then let it go and think it's going to run on autopilot. That's not the way it works. Basically, service businesses are a lot of work. There's no way around that. But having a process allows you to speed that up a little bit, but it also allows you to just manage that process as opposed to managing the individual service line and having to do it. So your job is no longer to manage client results. It's to manage the process and to find the breakdowns and inefficiencies in that. So yes, ultimately, we're still trying to get clients results. But if your process is tight, it's going to result in results. It's going to result in results. So as opposed to nitpicking over why or not this client didn't go up, you can actually look at the service and say, hey, where did our process break down? Did we get this done on time? Are we building the right links? Are we getting the right content live? You're able to manage that process as opposed to just hyper focusing on results. And you can actually make decisions that will make a difference doing that. So something else that I want to encourage you guys to look at is BPM, which stands for Business Process Management, and Six Sigma concepts. These are concepts back from the manufacturing, I say back from the manufacturing days, but from the manufacturing days where they're looking at their process and the inefficiencies in it and then optimizing around those. Really kind of fascinating concepts to some of us process nerds that will really help you to get your process optimized in the right way. Here's just a quick screenshot. It talks a little bit about Six Sigma. It says Six Sigma is a disciplined, statistical-based, data-driven approach and continuous improvement methodology for eliminating effects in a product, process, or service. And this is what they use. They use this mean graph here to look at how many inefficiencies or deficiencies in their product they have on average. And we're talking about this over millions and millions of products. So this concept applied at a very small scale to our very small services. Again, we don't have to actually use this, but I'm just trying to drive home that like this is an actual thing. Process management and optimization is a very real thing that the biggest companies in the world have been using for decades to make a lot of money, because they're not focused on each individual product. They're focused on the process as a whole and how they can optimize and improve and manage that process. So that's everything on processes. Again, I've got a lot more of this stuff up on the Blueprint training. If you want to see what our agency's processes actually look like, go ahead and check them out. They're all done for you. We've got our videos, our SOPs, our templates, everything up there for you to review for my recommendations on how this should look for your agency. So now that we've got our service nailed down, we've got our process done, now we can start talking about people for how we can truly pull ourselves out of the day-to-day operations and focus on growing the business and its people, right? This becomes much more of an HR business at this point, getting the right people hired, trained, and ready to go. So as always, I'll see you guys in that next video.